If in the winter you're like, oh, why am I always tired? Why do I always feel sad? Why am I so lethargic? There's an overwhelming chance that you're deficient in... Jon Snow's been saying it for years. Winter is coming. Your YouTube feed is probably starting to fill up with videos about the winter arc and how you need to lock in and start grinding to achieve whatever pithy goals they're laying out in their videos. And there's a reason that those videos do so well. It's because, I mean, we all know it. When the winter blues, SAD, seasonal affective disorder, getting through the winter is tough, and especially so for people in roles like software engineering, where you're going to be spending the vast majority of the day where there's sunlight inside. So then when you get out of the office at the end of the day, it's dark. It's colder, so people are less likely to do things after work, and you find yourself seeing people less, having less to do, and just generally feeling worse. And not only does this have an effect on your work quality and output, but it has an effect on how you feel, like how good your quality of life is. But winter doesn't have to be the stereotypical period of your life that has to be a depression-filled, gloomy situation. You can actually have winter be the most productive point in your life, which is why I think you get these winter arc videos, but they go about it in completely the wrong way, because sure, you might be having a massive amount of output, but if you want to kill yourself the whole time, have you had really that good a winter? So let's cover some things that you can actually do about it to make sure that winter isn't just a write-off. So I'm going to start with the main issue, which you're probably going to see all of the tech bro and biohacking people talk about all the time. It's the Andrew Huberman staple of daylight exposure. Except a lot of that advice isn't going to apply too well when you're waking up and before you even get to work, it's dark. You drive to work and you get there and it's still dark. And then you get in the office and by the time that you leave, guess what? It's dark again and you go out and you haven't seen any daylight the whole day. This profoundly affects your brain's capacity to be happy and work properly. The reason that you start feeling sluggish in the winter and tired isn't because it's cold so you're burning more energy or something. No, it's because your sleep quality massively reduces when you're not getting proper sunlight exposure. The whole system that gets you to fall asleep is based on when you first see daylight, morning light preferably, and when you see evening light. There's actually different wavelengths to signify to your brain whether it's morning and evening and whether your body should be preparing for doing things throughout the day or preparing to wind down so that you can sleep. Think about it. If you're getting to work and as far as your brain's concerned, it's still nighttime because it's still dark, and you get in and you blast yourself with all the light in the office, or maybe you're working from home and it's the overhead light, and you sit in front of a computer and it's blue light all day, and then you get to the end of the day and you're playing video games or watching TV. It's blue light all the way up until nighttime, and it's never had those red lights that it can differentiate between morning and evening. It's just been broad daylight from, let's say you start work at 9 a.m. right until 9 p.m. when you turn off the TV to go to bed. No wonder you go to sleep and then wake up the next day feeling like shit. The quickest way to hack this is essentially trying to get in on cigarette culture. On both iPhone and Android, you can set up alarms using their shortcut functions so that you can send yourself a notification and set the time to sunrise and sunset. And you can normally offset that by a certain amount of time. So if you give yourself an alarm 10 minutes before sunrise and then 10 minutes before sunset, that's all it takes to completely set up your circadian rhythm. Now, I know certain companies can be pretty hardline on making sure that you're at your desk and doing work, but for 10 minutes that you're taking out of your day to actually go and make sure that you can function as an adult, you can almost certainly squeeze these in. Even if it means taking those 5 minutes away from your lunch break. So you say, look, I'm going to take 10 minutes off of my lunch break so I can spend 5 minutes seeing morning light and 5 minutes seeing evening light. Get outside, check your texts, check your messages, just make sure that you're actually outside and not behind a window. Now, it doesn't matter if it's overcast. There's good literature on this. It doesn't even matter if, it's very, very cloudy. The sun is still penetrating through and your brain is still going to get that same system. Your brain is still going to get that same, oh, okay, this is what time of the day it is. I know what I'm doing. And then for your main lunch break, just actually get outside. It doesn't matter if it's raining. Chances are you're going to find somewhere that's got coverage where you can eat your lunch. Try and get your colleagues to come out with you. Just because it's cold, throw on a coat. Just say, look, I actually want to see some daylight. People are actually quite responsive to that. I find that at my own company, if I say, oh, I'm going to go for a walk, even if it's to nowhere, because there's nowhere really near where my company is to walk to, it's just a point of getting outside and then coming back again, people are happy to come with you. And it's not just about getting outside, it's about giving your brain what it needs so that it can actually give you those chemicals that make you happy. I'm not going to go into the science of it, but if you want to see the literature, I'll leave a link in the description. So the next heavy hitter is what I touched on in the introduction, socializing. I know that there's a spectrum of people who are introverted and extroverted, but regardless of which you are, when it comes to winter, like it or not, people just do things less. You're less excited to go down the pub with the boys after work if it's pitch black and cold. Those things just naturally happen less. And if you want a prime example of how socializing affects your mental health, take a look at the statistics on elderly people and their longevity based on how much time they spend seeing people. It doesn't just make you sad, it shortens your life. So we need to find a conscious way so that we're actually, around people and doing things. And one of the best ways you can do this is if you're hybrid or remote and you have an office nearby, go to the office. And if you don't have an office nearby, there are so many companies now opening up that allow you to do co-working spaces, which is essentially just a place that you go buy a coffee, and the culture is that they're not going to be kicking you out the door after half an hour because you've outstayed your welcome like you would at Starbucks. And also, you're going to find people there who are like-minded, other people who are in remote jobs who, you know, are used to spending their 9 to 5 by themselves and actually want to be around people. So they're going to be even more likely to respond if you try and start a conversation. It's so important that in the winter you actually put in that conscious effort to go and see people. And I think if you actually think about how much you do in the winter versus how much you do in the summer when it comes to, in terms of going and seeing people and getting outside and having proper conversation, you'll realize that actually it's night and day. A good way of checking this is if you use like Snapchat or you take pictures on your camera roll, just scroll through and take a look at how often you take selfies with your friends or pictures out and about doing things in the summer against winter. There's probably a lot less photos in winter because you just do less. Now, the next one is insane to me, but we need to even bring it up. Both the American Health Services and the NHS in the UK make it very clear that just about everybody throughout the winter needs to be taking this supplement. Go look it up on the website now. You'll see that I think the argument is for people with darker skin, it's 100% of winter. And then for people who have lighter skin, it's like the darker months, which is like 3 or 4 months. But regardless, that's just when you're dipping into the point where you're deficient and your body's starting, and that deficiency is showing symptoms bad enough that you would go and see a doctor. I mean, you don't even want to be getting to that point, right? You want to be at a point where you're nowhere near things getting bad. And it's simple. You've all heard it. From the sun, you get vitamin D. And in most countries in the winter, even if you spend all your time outside working as a bricklayer, you're not going to get enough vitamin D. So if you're a software engineer who spends all their time inside, you're definitely not getting it. Vitamin D deficiency directly impacts your mood and your energy. So if in the winter you're like, oh, why am I always tired? Why do I always feel sad? Why am I so lethargic? There's an overwhelming chance that you're deficient in vitamin D, and that could make a meaningful difference to how you feel. And the best thing about it is it costs like £5 for a year's supply. So there's literally no excuse not to do it. It's one of the most researched supplements out there. It's very clean, very easy to get a hold of. The pills are tiny, and you just take one a day, and the problem goes away. From my personal experience, every year I forget to start taking vitamin D when it starts getting dark, and I fall into exactly this problem. It's like, oh, why do I feel so tired? Maybe I'm working out too much, or why do I feel so sad? Like everything's going so well. And then it's like, oh, yeah, it's winter and I haven't been taking vitamin D, and I start taking it and suddenly I start feeling way better. Now, that's obviously not going to work for everyone, and if you do find that even after ticking boxes like this and being in good health, having a good diet, that you're still struggling, that's probably around the time that you want to start reaching out for some mental health. This isn't professional advice. It's just my personal experience of how I deal with winter. But all in all, these 3 things, getting outside, actually socializing with people, and making sure that you're not deficient in vitamin D, together are going to be the heavy hitters when it comes to feeling better in winter. And what that's going to do is it's going to prime you to actually start achieving your goals. You can start your winter arc or whatever the current trend is. And if you do want to do something like that and you want to start achieving things quite seriously in your career, I've actually got a video to help you with that. So if you click here, that'll help. Cheers.